Patreon page. Here we will provide you with the sports betting tips, picks, and information in order for you to become a successful gambler. We have 5 packages that I think really do an incredible job of providing the information tailored to you, what you want, and what your sports betting needs are. For more information, reach out to the TWSN team, but we have a ton of stuff coming your way. Content from fantasy football, sports betting for UFC, NBA, NHL, and of course the NFL. We are so excited to be able to bring this service to you, and let us know if there's any more information you need.
Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down on.
Well, welcome everyone back to the TWSN Weekly Show. My name is Rishi, and I'll be the fill-in host for today. Today I'm joined by the usuals, Pranav, Jake, and Tom. How you guys doing today?
Yo, doing great.
Awesome, perfect to hear. Right, guys, so before we get into our show, just make sure to download the app, TWSN on the App Store. TWSN.net is where you can find all our content covering the NFL, NBA, UFC, MLB, and any sports league that you can really think of. We've got it covered. And yeah, without further ado, make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel. Most of you are probably watching this live stream on there, but subscribe to us, give us a sub. We've got lots of breakdowns coming through. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So, of course, this past weekend, the NFL got started. Week 1 of the NFL season officially was underway, and boy, was it a really entertaining one. It really got capped off perfectly with that Monday Night Football game that we watched last night. But let's sort of talk about something that happened during the day on Sunday, and it's specifically with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, guys. Obviously, they got absolutely hammered by Jameis Winston and the Saints. They lost by a final score of 38-3, and Rodgers just played in a way that I've never seen him play before, right? He threw 2 picks and I think almost 4 pass attempts back-to-back. What do you guys make of this Packers game? Jake, if you want to start off, how concerned are you for Aaron Rodgers? And if you're not concerned at all, at what point do you begin to, kind of get concerned?
Look, good teams lose, right? Every year, good teams lose. There's been one team in the history of football that's ever gone undefeated. Good teams lose. Cleveland lost. Cleveland's a very good team. It's going to win 12 or 13 games and will probably end up winning their division after what we saw from Baltimore. Good teams lose. But what that was for Green Bay was something that was so unexpected, even after all the turmoil that they had this offseason. Now, you might think Packers fans are glad about what happened in the offseason because they got Aaron Rodgers to stay. They got him content with coming back to the team. But in reality, once Aaron Rodgers wanted out in April on draft night, there was no good result that could have ended up happening this offseason for Aaron Rodgers. He did not play in the preseason, and when quarterbacks don't play in the preseason, it doesn't matter how what your legacy is or how good you are, you're going to show some rust. And this was Rodgers' worst game of his career. But what my biggest takeaway from this is something's going on with Aaron Rodgers, because the entire offseason he kept bashing the Packers organization. His whole press conference was, subtle jabs at the organization, and deservingly so, because it's been garbage for so long and they haven't been fair to him for most of his entire career. They weren't really fair to Brett Favre either, and they're most likely not going to be fair to Jordan Love. But how Rodgers is treating this is so opposite of how someone like Russell Wilson has treated this situation, where the Seahawks didn't have any cap space this offseason, but they got Russell a left guard and a nice tight end. They got him a new offensive coordinator, but other than that, Rodgers got a new head coach who's won 70% of his games in 2 years. So Rodgers really, I get he has stuff to complain about, but the way that he's gone about this is so incredibly different from what someone like Russell Wilson, who was in a similar situation for a decade long. But as far as the game goes, I could argue that Aaron Rodgers went completely MIA and must have thought the game was still in New Orleans. And the entire Packers team was so incredibly flat. It looked like they were just going through the motions. It really felt like they were just going through the motions all camp, all throughout preseason. I know Adams didn't really do much in camp either. I'm not sure if he played in the preseason or not, but he looked fine. But other than that, nothing for Aaron Jones. The offensive line still figuring out what they're doing without David Bakhtiari. They didn't look like a team, and this defense could be a problem this year because it's been bad recently. And it could be a complete issue this year. And we're talking about a situation this goes beyond week one overreactions. They're going to bounce back. They're going to win a ton of games and be a very good team. But this is not a week one overreaction. They could have some issues this year.
Yeah, no, to sort of reiterate, I totally agree. A lot of people think just reacting based off games that happen in week one is a severe overreaction. I tend to be on the side that thinks that it is an overreaction, but I think it's completely different for the Packers, especially given just the recent history of all the events that sort of happened in the summer. Jake, you did a really good job of sort of summing it up. But another thing that really concerns me is the strength of schedule that they have to face. I mean, we're talking about a team that towards the end of the season is really going to get it turned on, right? They have to play the Seahawks, the Ravens, the Chiefs. And I'm sure I'm missing out on a bunch of teams, but they could very well be playing the Bears when Justin Fields is starting. So, this is a team that is given really little help in all scenarios, right? You've got Aaron Rodgers. Does he want to be there? He's kind of being this sort of mystery man in his press conferences. And, Aaron Jones, you touched on it, the offensive line and the defense. I think you did a really good job pointing that out. That is something that's really going to be concerning, especially their pass rush was not even close to what it used to be yesterday. Jair Alexander is great, but, how much can a cornerback really do for a defense? Pranav, what do you think about the situation with the Green Bay Packers?
So when I went back to watch this game, in particular Aaron Rodgers, it didn't seem like as if he was making bad decisions. It seemed like he didn't care. Like, Aaron Rodgers is not the type of quarterback who, at his own 10-yard line, would throw the ball down the field as a careless interception, airmailing it completely past his wide receiver. That doesn't seem like an Aaron Rodgers thing to do. And it gets to the point where, like, everyone's like, oh, this is going to be his revenge season. He's going to prove that was last year. Last year was his revenge season where he proved the Packers that he's still an elite quarterback. What does he really have to prove this season? Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened because, again, the entire offseason he kind of made a point where, I don't need football. Football is my second priority. I have, movies, Jeopardy. I have all this stuff. Meanwhile, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson, Tom Brady is trying to win his 8th Super Bowl ring, and we saw exactly what he looked like on Thursday night. We saw what Russ did. He got his new offensive coordinator. He's trying to make the best of this situation. But Aaron Rodgers has made it a point where he doesn't need football. And it honestly looked like that on Sunday where, his team, this might not be his best team ever. And I don't agree with them advertising it as the last dance because this is far from the best team he's had. This team isn't as good as they were last year, especially to start the year without Bakhtiari. So he's made it a point where he doesn't need football. And that's who Aaron Rodgers is.
Right. And to reiterate on that, I mean, he looked like he didn't care, the careless decisions, like I mentioned earlier. But then at the same time, the same thing could be said for Devontae Adams. I mean, both of these guys, it's not like if they play bad this year, a team is going to stay away from them. They are attractive pieces on the market. They're still going to get the attention they warrant. They really don't have anything to prove to really get more in the league, or if they want to step away from football, they really don't have any worries in this. If Aaron Rodgers wanted to win a ring this year, I could see the mentality where he's like, why would I want to win a franchise? Why would I want to win a ring for a franchise that has done nothing but disrespect me? I could see that point of view from Aaron Rodgers. He's not really going to lose anything in this situation. He's going to probably be on a new team next year. I could completely see him just not caring.
Yeah, so for the overall general consensus, we seem to agree that it's very concerning right now. It's really flat-footed, and, Aaron Rodgers is sort of starting out on a really weird mystery man note. Tom, do you sort of agree with that notion that we've kind of put out, or do you have something that kind of goes against our opinion?
No, I agree. I mean, listen, I won't lie. I was someone who said, "Oh, this is going to be Aaron Rodgers' year. He's going to win MVP this year." Right? That was my preseason. Obviously, it doesn't look good today, but I think what's really going to be interesting. Again, I get the whole week one overreaction, or is it not? I think what's going to be really telling is Monday night. When he gets a home game against Detroit, right? If he struggles again, if Green Bay looks like a mess again, then it's time to get concerned. If not, maybe Sunday was a wake-up call against New Orleans, and he'll be able to come out. Obviously, he's one of the greatest quarterbacks I've ever seen in my entire lifetime. So, if he bounces back fine on Monday, I think that maybe that'll slow the brakes down, so everyone knows that hey, the Packers are still very good. So I think if for me personally, before I start freaking out about the Green Bay Packers team, I want to see how Monday turns out. and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, for sure. That's really a great point. The Lions is a team, or are a team that Rodgers just typically shreds apart, especially with Jared Goff. Really, nothing special on that offense to begin with, other than DeAndre Swift. So yeah, it'll be definitely interesting, a primetime game on Monday night. And talking about teams to worry about, another one on this list that many have brought up are the Buffalo Bills. They came off absolutely flat-footed against the Pittsburgh Steelers in their game this Sunday. What do you guys think of this in general, right? Was this just them going against an amazing team in the Steelers and their defense just, kind of muffling Josh Allen a bit? Because, the Bills were one of the most hyped up teams in the preseason. This is supposed to be the team that can give Mahomes a run for his money. They're supposed to be up there 1-2 right in the AFC. So not really, the Bills are nothing now, but how much do you view the Bills in a different light, if any of you guys want to start off on that?
They're going to be fine. This is a really good team. Like they're looking at week 1 games, you have to take away some positives because teams are coming off of camp. They might be injured. Week 1's very, very fragile. And when you have to face a team, especially a team like Buffalo, who has not been good in so long, the expectations for this team is through the roof. And I'm not sure they're good enough to really exceed those expectations, which is winning a Super Bowl and being better than Kansas City or Cleveland. I don't think they're there, but it's still a very good football team. And some of the positives that they can take away are they're going to play good defense. Look, I said it with the Packers, with the Browns, that good teams lose. Sometimes you get your punt blocked. Like, that's what happened. Like, sometimes your punt gets blocked. It happens. If that punt doesn't get blocked, the Bills maybe win this game. And we're having a different conversation. And, they snuck away from a sneaky good Pittsburgh team that plays really good defense again in week 1. So they got to run the football. That they did. The game script didn't help them, but Singletary still rushed for 6.5 yards a carry. Josh Allen escaped the pocket just fine. But this team will not win games if Allen needs to throw the ball 51 times and doesn't do it in a efficient way, and that's what he didn't do on Sunday. So yeah, it was just a bad game, but am I taking away the fact that the Bills lost to Pittsburgh, who people thought were going to be bad this year, which they never are? No, I don't really care. It's week 1 and good teams lose games. Good teams have bad games, and sometimes you get a punt blocked. So Pittsburgh's better than we thought, and they're going to play really good defense, and they still can't move the ball, and that's an issue in that division, but they're going to be in competitive games, and sometimes they're going to block punts, and that's how they're going to win games.
Yeah, no, you bring up a great point. I think all of us will sort of agree to that point about the Bills, right? Not much to worry. Do both of you, Pranav and Tom, agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the complete opposite of the Green Bay situation. I just think this is a team in week 1 that's a little rusty, and they're going to get going in the midseason.
Yeah,
exactly. Go ahead.
Sorry, the Steelers. I mean, look, I still think the Bills are one of the better teams in the AFC. For Pittsburgh, they played a perfect second half. Their offense, defense, and special teams, like Jake just mentioned. So they played a perfect half in the second half. Buffalo's going to be fine. I still think that they're one of the better teams in the AFC.
Yeah, so how about this one? On the flip side, what are you guys' first impressions of the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Obviously, we know their defense is good. TJ Watt played out of his mind. The entire defensive line got a lot of pressure. Melvin Ingram also got, a couple good hits on the quarterback. But what do you guys think about their offense? Of course, they brought in a new offensive coordinator. Do you think they're going to be able to get this going later on in the season, or do you think it's just going to become flat-footed like it was now?
I mean, to start off, I think their offense is just low-key below average. I think that may be generous. They drafted Najee Harris to improve the run game, but, the Buffalo Bills are not a great run defense. And Najee Harris had about, at one point, 7 carries for 8 yards. I just don't see them having much success in the run game until they improve their offensive line, which is still a massive hole for them. And then Big Ben in the passing game, I just cannot trust having much success. Did I hear an echo? Am I good?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. In terms of Big Ben, he's made some nice throws in that game. He can make those short, intermediate throws. But, in terms of pushing the ball down the field, I just really don't trust him at this point to do that consistently. So in terms of what I view Pittsburgh as, last year they benefited off the easiest schedule in the league to start off the year. They went undefeated. This year their schedule is actually the hardest schedule in the league. So it really comes down to how far their defense can take them. Obviously, they lost pieces like Dupree, but I mean, that defense is still elite. I think that defense can win them about 7 to 10 games, give or take. And yeah, that's really what I see from them. I'm not high on this offense at all. I think their offense is probably going to be near the bottom of the league.
Yeah, they're going to struggle to move the ball. And look, we had this conversation in one of our chats last night with Joe, who's our TWSN Steelers guy. And he was like, well, it's game one. I'm like, well, we saw this 17 times last year. That they struggled to move the football. And a new offensive coordinator and a new offensive line, they were the only team in the league this year. I think the only team like in the last 20 years to have 5 new offensive linemen. It's not like they're any good. Like this is not a good offensive line by any stretch of the imagination. Getting a new OC and a new O-line doesn't change the fact that Big Ben is not good anymore. He has lost his anticipation. He's lost his touch. He still moves fine in the pocket for whatever reason. I don't know how he's 40 years old and still evades sacks like Vic. But he's post-surgery. Big Ben is not the same quarterback. I know he threw the ball a lot last year and was efficient for some of the season. But, once they lost the run game last year, they really couldn't move the ball. And, yes, the run game will come this year. That I'm confident in because they did beef up the interior. I do like Kendrick Green a lot. He's going to help Najee Harris a lot. And Najee Harris is very good. So he'll help them. That I'm not worried about. But as far as the passing game goes, Big Ben's not good anymore. So if they can, just slightly move the ball, they'll win games because of the defense. But I'm very worried that I don't think they're going to move the football at an efficient mark this year.
Yeah, and I'm happy to hear that Pranav and Jake both speak, about Big Ben the way they are, because I've always been his biggest critic for it seems like the last 2 or 3 years. When I spoke to another TWSN analyst, Michael Seitz, he was always calling for the previous OC's neck. So I think over time, obviously I was a little disappointed in Najee Harris's first game, but again, it's his first NFL game. So, over time, I'm just embarking on what these two are saying. Pittsburgh's going to be probably a little better than I thought coming into the year. I was a little skeptical on the offensive side of the ball. So, I think, again, like I said previously, I was talking about the Bills. Pittsburgh played a perfect second half on Sunday. So, if they could continue and to build off that momentum, they'll be a very good team in the North.
Yeah, and sort of a follow-up question on this. Do you guys see the Steelers as a team that could potentially win the AFC North? Of course, they're loaded with the Browns, the Ravens. And if not, do you think that they could snag that final wild card spot in the AFC, or do you think they're going to start off high and sort of dwindle down to the bottom as most teams with a good defense and low offense do?
They're nowhere near Cleveland. And we saw that in the playoffs last year. Like, Cleveland got better, Pittsburgh got worse last year, and Cleveland wiped them in Pittsburgh. So they're not better than Cleveland. They probably will lose to them twice, I think. But look, the second spot in that really good division is open because of the Baltimore's injury. Now, Baltimore's a really good team. They just didn't play like it. It just didn't feel like it last night. Playing in that environment week one with all the turmoil, the injuries. Baltimore's fine. They'll bounce back. It's not a big deal there. But that second spot, I will say, is open. I think it was open once all those injuries started to happen in Baltimore. And Pittsburgh, that defense will win them games. I've said their floor is 8. Like, if everything goes wrong, like besides, Ben getting injured, TJ Watt getting injured, if everything goes wrong, like they can't score and their secondary starts to fluster, their floor is still 8 wins because they're going to attack the quarterback and Mike Tomlin's going to win them games. I think their ceiling maxes out at about 10 to 11, which I don't think is good enough to win that division because that division does not have the hardest schedule this year, I don't think. And Cleveland's going to win 12 games. Like I just really strongly believe that. So no, I really don't think they're going to go win the division, but they certainly started off strong. And yes, they can definitely easily sneak a wild card spot, especially, Denver's good. The Chargers are good. Tennessee looks terrible. And we'll talk about that. Indy, there's turmoil there. That's another team that's going to be in the hunt for a wild card spot. New England, Miami, whichever team ends up, not winning the East if Buffalo's fine. But yeah, there's a lot of teams similar to Pittsburgh, I would say, but they're certainly going to be in the hunt, come Thanksgiving, come, early December.
Anyone else want to add on that? I think Jake did a really good job serving that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you kind of touched on it already a little bit. Tennessee, the Titans were hyped to be one of the top 5, top 6 offenses after they signed Julio Jones, right? You had Ryan Tannehill, Julio Jones, AJ Brown, Derrick Henry, and they go out in week 1 and absolutely blow a tire against the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray looks like a Madden video game character as he just absolutely danced around that Titans defense. And the Titans offense just looked extremely lackluster, right? Especially what I was noticing when I was watching the game, when the defense knew that Tannehill was in an obvious passing down, the offense seemed to struggle a lot. You have some little bit of turmoil here and there, right? Mike Vrabel, his comments on Julio Jones after the game was stirring up quite a couple headlines. Let's start with you on this one. What do you think about the Titans? Just the way that they're starting out the season, is this something to be concerned about, or is it just them facing an extremely talented Cardinals defense and just getting a bunch of new pieces to kind of sort together?
I'm cautious about the Titans. I was high on them in the preseason because of all their offensive pieces, combined with the fact that they play in a relatively weak division. Obviously, the Colts are there. But then after that, it runs thin with Jacksonville and Houston. So that's a big reason why I was high on them. I thought that I still think they were going to make the playoffs. But, I mean, I'm a little cautious, and it's more so that defense. Obviously, Kyler was amazing. Like, there is nothing to take away from that performance other than he's probably going to be an MVP candidate throughout the year. But, I mean, that defense just got absolutely torched by Kyler. The front seven couldn't get anything going. The secondary just couldn't stop the pass game. I mean, there really wasn't anything going well for that defense the entire game. And then offensively, that's where I'm not going to overreact too much, to the point where, like, Derrick Henry did not get anything going. Did not get anything going at all. I'm not sure how many times that's going to happen throughout the year. So, I mean, that's not a big concern for me. Julio Jones did not have a great game either. Ryan Tannehill did not have a great game. It just looked like an inconsistent performance all around. And unfortunately for them, everyone had their bad game in the same game. I'm not sure how many times that's going to happen throughout the course of the season. So I'm a little cautious because of their defense, but I think their offense will be just fine.
Yeah, and I
go ahead, Tom.
You go. No, you go.
Are you sure?
Positive.
All right. All right. I disagree. I did, like, last year I was really low on the Titans and I was wrong. I was like, I think, you know, there's going to be a hangover. How many times really can you rely on Derrick Henry? And I was wrong last year. They were really, really good. They were able to move the ball. And I was just about to say that. You stole it from me. Todd Downing's terrible. Like, he's awful. The gap between Arthur Smith and Todd Downing is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly wide. Downing was awful in Oakland. He was horrible with Buffalo, pretty bad with Detroit, even though, you know, he wasn't really as high up with those teams. But in Oakland, he was, and that team's he wasn't good in Oakland. I believe he was there. He was there the year after. He was the quarterback's coach with Derek Carr during that magical year when he tore Fibula and they, you know, lost to AJ McCarron in the playoffs. But and then he was the OC. He got hired for the OC next year, or the next year in 2017, and they were bad. Pretty much because of him. Then he went to Minnesota to be the tight ends coach. Then went to Tennessee to be the tight ends coach, and then got, you know, he failed upwards into be hiring to be the OC in Tennessee after Arthur Smith went to Atlanta. So he's not good. And this team lost a lot of offensive pieces. They lost a very good tight end in Jonnu Smith and a very, very underrated receiver in Corey Davis, a very good compliment to A.J. Brown. And who they replaced him with? An old Julio Jones. Like, I get Julio Jones was still very effective when he was on the field last year, and I love Julio Jones, top 5 receiver in the league, but he's old. And do I have confidence that he's going to bounce back? Sure. But this team struggled to move the ball against Arizona. And look, I agree with you, Pranav. I'm going to be a little bit cautious because there's still a lot of good personnel on this team. But allowing 5 sacks to Chandler Jones, I believe, was that Taylor Lewan?
Yeah. He also tweeted that, I'm sorry. He tweeted a public apology.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Lewan, he's coming off a torn ACL. Whatever. He's a pro. He's fine. But allowing 5 sacks to Chandler Jones isn't going to get the job done, and having Derrick Henry average 3.4 yards a carry is not going to get the job done. But Arizona, man, they have so many pieces, and it really feels like this is Kyler Murray's next step. He took a step up last year. In year 2, they weren't very good, though. But this year 3 jump that he's about to take is going to be massive. And they finally have a running game. They have a three-headed monster running back, Edmonds, Connor, and then, of course, Kyler Murray as well. Edmonds looks really good in only 12 carries. Connor's going to be the feature back mostly. He had 16 carries, but then Hopkins, Christian Kirk in his third year, looked really good. And they got Rondale Moore, and then they got A.J. Green too. So they have a lot of guys that they can rely on. The defense looked good. Isaiah Simmons, very, very impressive in his first game of his second year. Byron Murphy's going to take a step this year. Buda Baker's top 5 safety in the league. And then, of course, Chandler Jones, one of the more underrated players. They have they got some players on this team. And I've always, for two reasons, I've kind of looked past Arizona. Last year, they weren't very good. But this year, there are a couple reasons I've looked past Arizona. Number one, because Cliff Kingsbury, who I think is a bottom 6 head coach in the National Football League. But they are going to win games this year, it looks like, in spite of him. And number two is the division. There's 3 top 10 teams in that division. I'm low on Seattle, but I think LA and San Fran are top 5 teams in football, with Seattle on the outside looking in, and they look impressive too. So, we got 4 teams here, and we're going to talk about the NFC West next. But this is a ridiculous division, and Arizona's good. And do they have enough firepower to keep up? I think they do, but will they? They're on the outside looking in here. But Murray is an MVP candidate, and it looks like everyone that they're going to need to take steps this year will.
I want to touch on Murray for a second, because last year in the midway point of the season, before he tore his shoulder in that Miami game or something like that, he was taking the step. I think we're seeing continued progression of the healthy Kyler Murray we were expecting throughout the first 8 weeks of last year. But how good can he become? Do you think at the end of the year he could be a top 5 level quarterback, top 4?
So I'm really high on Dak, so it's going to be hard for me to have someone move past Dak, especially the way Dak looked. But there's no reason he can't be 6, 7. There's no reason he can't pass Lamar at all. But I think, yes, the Miami game when he hurt his shoulder, the AC joint, I think it was the last couple games of the year, that wasn't Kyler's fault. I think that is what we saw, proves how bad Cliff Kingsbury is, because he couldn't scheme around having an injured quarterback. He couldn't get the run game going. He couldn't get Hopkins going at a consistent level. So I don't think it was Murray's fault. Murray wasn't playing particularly bad. He was injured. It wasn't his fault. But if he stays healthy this year, yes, he will become an elite quarterback because of this system. The system works very well for him, even though, Cliff Kingsbury knows how to run an offense. He's just not a good head coach. And that's why I think they're going to be the 4th best team in this division. But if everyone takes steps, and I think Seattle could fall, which I think is going to happen eventually. They have a really tough schedule the next 6 or 7 weeks. But it's looking up in Arizona. It's definitely looking up.
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting, this NFC West division, just how insanely stacked this is. I mean, you're talking about, I strongly believe all 4 teams are going to make the playoffs. I don't think any other NFC team is going to snag a wild card position. And really, the reason I think this is just, you're just seeing it. The 49ers, I think, if any team falls down, it's going to be them. I think what's going to end up happening to the 49ers is they're going to start to shy away from Jimmy Garoppolo as they sort of face tougher opponents. Jimmy Garoppolo is slowly going to start to decline, and then there's going to be Trey Lance talk. Oh, let's get Trey Lance in here. Let's do this.
No. Jimmy's the guy.
You don't think so? Why not?
No. Jimmy wins games, and that's why they brought him over, because he's intelligent and he can make throws, and he's a very good game man. He's a game man. He's a game manager plus. I don't like calling Jimmy Garoppolo just a game manager, because game managers don't win 65% of their games. Winning in the NFL is really hard, and Jimmy Garoppolo is very good at it. That's something that's just not going to change. The only reason they brought Trey Lance in is because they became very impatient with waiting for Jimmy G to play 17 games or 16, 17 games in a year. So Lance is just there waiting. There's no pressure to play Trey Lance this year. I get it was fun that, he threw a touchdown on his first career pass. Shanahan literally said that Lance was going to get red zone snaps, and he did. It just happened that he threw a touchdown. Great. I love Trey Lance. I think he's going to be very good, especially with Kyle Shanahan. Trey Lance was very nice to me at the draft, so I like Trey Lance. But Jimmy Garoppolo wins games, and he's very good at it. And look, I get the run game, I get the defense, but Jimmy Garoppolo made a Super Bowl, and then they went out and got Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk. Like, this is a very good team that's going to win a lot of games, and I don't care that they almost blew a 41-17 lead because they were in control for so much of the game, and they started playing soft coverage. I'm not even going to get into it. They're going to wipe Philadelphia this weekend, and, we're going to see where Philadelphia really is after not playing a high school defense who can't tackle, cover, or attack the quarterback. So San Fran's really good. Like, they're really good.
So what happens to the 49ers when they ask Jimmy Garoppolo to go out and win a game, right? Because in a lot of these situations, he has a defensive run game to rely on. But what happens when it's a close neck-to-neck game and they really need Jimmy Garoppolo to rely on him? Do you think they can do that, or do you think he's not capable of that?
Well, they haven't needed to yet, and they went to a Super Bowl without needing to, really, because that run game really was dominant down the stretch. But, like, I go back to that Saints game, the Saints game in 2019. That was, a complete shootout. Jimmy got it done. And I know that wasn't a postseason game, but Jimmy, I think, threw for like 350, 400. They weren't able to keep running the ball. Fourth quarter, down one score, up one score. I go to the, was it the Baltimore game? I know that was a low-scoring game in 2019. I'm trying to remember some of these games in 2019 that wasn't the postseason, because the postseason they just ran over everybody and then stopped running the ball in the Super Bowl, up 2 scores and defected them. But the Jimmy played fine in the Baltimore game. They went on the road and beat Baltimore. But I really go to the New Orleans game in 2019. And he was exceptional in that game in the Superdome against a really strong New Orleans Saints team. That was a moment where, like, okay, San Fran's really good if this is how Jimmy Garoppolo is going to play. And I don't think he's gotten worse since then. I get he's had a minor injury that cost him, an up and down season with the bruise and battled Niners team last year that lost everybody. But this roster is really, really good. And I don't think they're winning in spite of Jimmy. I really think Jimmy is very important to their success.
So I have a question for all of you guys. When do you take the risk on the upside of Trey Lance? Because obviously you're not going to sit and have Jimmy play out Trey Lance's entire rookie contract. And I don't think Trey Lance can sit 2 years in the NFL after not playing a whole year of college last year. So do you think they do something like the Chiefs did, where they had a guy in Alex Smith who was a game manager? He was an MVP candidate at one point in 2017. And then depending on what they do in the playoffs, that's when you transition to Trey Lance.
I truly think they're taking it year by year. Like, I really don't know if they have a plan. Like, we said this throughout the draft process, they traded up and then everyone was like, okay, they're going to take Mac. No, they're going to take Justin and they're going to take Trey. And we're like, do we really think that Kyle Shanahan made this move without having a plan? Like, do we really think they're doing all this without having a plan? I honestly don't know, but I do really think they're taking it year by year. Obviously, Trey is the guy in the future. Like, he's like amazing and he's going to be really good in San Francisco. But there is a ceiling to Jimmy for sure. Like, Trey's ceiling is through the roof. He's still super, super young, super, super raw. But, Jimmy does have a Mac. He does have a ceiling. But he's taken this team to a Super Bowl before. There's no reason why he can't do it again, especially because Tampa already won it, and it's really hard to go back to a Super Bowl after winning one. So that's really in, the Rams' favor. It's really in San Fran's favor. It's in Seattle's favor. The other good teams, the NFC, there's not many of them truly. The AFC is a lot stronger than the NFC at the top and in the middle. But there's a cap for Jimmy Garoppolo. But if he keeps hitting the ceiling, it's going to be really hard to put Trey Lance in there. But he's got to stay healthy to do it. He's got to stay healthy. And that he didn't do last year, and that's why they took Trey Lance.
Yeah, and I've always been on the side of, I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo, he gets too much slander than he should, right? I always agree, and I agree a lot with what you just said, Jake. I think what San Fran's trying to do is really wait for the right opportunity to finally have a plausible reason to play Lance, right? So I think that's kind of my mindset of how that's going to play out. That's how I feel like it's been playing out through the preseason. Just watching both of them play. I think once that opportunity comes, where hey, this is our time to actually get Trey Lance in, is the time that he'll go in and he'll stick there.
Like, not every situation is created equal. We look in Chicago. I would say there's a quarterback in waiting and there's a quarterback lurking. Justin Fields is lurking. He is itching to play. Like the entire fan base wants him, and I think there's a situation in San Fran where a lot of the fans don't like Jimmy Garoppolo for whatever reason. They just don't like him, and now they brought in Trey Lance, so they really don't like Jimmy Garoppolo. But in Chicago, Justin Fields is lurking. I don't have a feeling that Trey Lance is lurking. He's in waiting. Like it's inevitable, but he's not breathing down Jimmy Garoppolo's neck right now. Justin Fields is all over Andy Dalton. Like he's all over him. And
I want Fields to play this upcoming week. I want.
He should. My thought process is you play the best. Like I don't care if you're tanking. NFL teams don't try to lose games. You play the quarterback, and especially this early in the year, play the quarterback that gives you the best chance to win football games. And Justin Fields gives them a better chance to win a game than Andy Dalton, I believe. Now Dalton is going to bounce back this week in Cincinnati because it's not on prime time. It is the Andy Dalton time slot, the 10 a.m. or 1 p.m. I guess. For the Eastern folks, because no one likes the West Coast apparently. But the 1 p.m. slot on Sunday morning, that's the Dalton slot. But still, even if Dalton bounces back, which I think he will, Justin Fields should be playing right now. Let him make mistakes learning, especially because they're not going to be very good. But even though they are trying to win games, let him make his mistakes. Let him learn. He's smart. He can do it. And like I think it's a similar situation to the Baker thing where, Hugh Jackson was really coaching for his job and he felt like, okay, Tyrod Taylor gives me a better chance to keep my job. But why does Matt Nagy think, and that was true, is if Tyrod Taylor never got hurt, Baker wouldn't have played for a while. But why does Matt Nagy think that Andy Dalton gives him a better chance to keep his job? Did he see him play for Dallas last year? He almost lost Mike McCarthy his job. The only reason Mike McCarthy stayed was because it was his first year and Dak got hurt.
Yeah, man. I mean, the quarterback situation in Chicago really makes absolutely zero sense to me. On the Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo spectrum, you can understand why they're not playing Trey Lance. He's just so much more raw, and Jimmy is just flat out the better quarterback right now. And it's pretty obvious to anyone who's even watched football for more than 2 hours at a time. But on the Chicago spectrum, you've got Justin Fields, who has clearly shown that he is better than Andy Dalton. Or I shouldn't say clearly shown, but in the snaps that he has played for Chicago and what we've seen from college, he is by far a much better quarterback than Andy Dalton and one that we saw with Chicago, or one that we saw Andy Dalton play with the Cowboys. I mean, he had CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Ezekiel Elliott, and that Cowboys offensive line, and he couldn't do anything last year. Like, from Matt Nagy's perspective, I just don't understand what's going on. This dude is literally rallying for his own job, and he's wanting to play it conservative as if he's trying to protect his little future prospect. But guess what? If you're fired this year, you're not going to have that future prospect. Justin Fields is not going to be in your little arsenal to hold forever. You've got to unleash him and just let him learn. I think they're doing too much to try to protect him from the NFL defenses. And I think there's too much talk about, these rookie quarterbacks won't be able to adjust. Like, sure, there is a learning curve. It does take some time, but Justin Fields is arguably the most pro-ready quarterback in the draft aside from Trevor Lawrence. So it just doesn't make much sense to me at all as to why they're holding back Justin Fields, especially against the Bengals, right? I mean, it's not a terrible defense, but it's not a top 5 defense like the Rams, right? I understand why you don't start him week 1 against Aaron Donald. I understand that. But just in general, I just find it very, very weird about how the Bears are, sort of taking across this approach. Pranav, you wanna talk a little bit about Justin Fields?
Yeah, I mean, to touch on what you guys said and what I previously said, I mean, I've been advocating for Justin Fields to start for like forever now. I mean, it's basically what you guys said. There's no reason why he shouldn't be starting. I don't think Andy Dalton's that good. Sorry if you do. But I mean, Justin Fields gives them the best chance to win. I mean, it's just the facts of the matter. I mean, like, the one scoring play they had, it was Justin Fields who was generating points through the run. He could just do so much more on the field than Andy Dalton can. And it's unfortunate, but I mean, actually, it's really fortunate because we all want to see Justin Fields play. So, I mean, it's you have to start Fields. Start him against the Bengals. We want Fields versus Burrow next week. Give it to us.
Yeah. That's pretty much a lot of what's going on in the NFL, right? We started out with the Bills Steelers, and we just slowly transgressed all the way across the NFC West, touched on the rookie quarterbacks. And so aside from the NFL, here's an interesting topic that I'm just going to toss up to you guys. Of course, USC just fired their coach, Clay Helton, within the first 2 weeks, I think. Yeah, first 2 weeks of college football. What are your guys' thoughts? Who should they hire? One of the names that's been tossed up around in recent headlines is Eric Bieniemy. What do you guys think about this headline? Jake, let's start with you.
California football is very interesting. It's where I come from, and football is obviously very big in California. And USC has been terrible for far too long. Texas football has been not terrible. USC has not been terrible, but they have been, not as good as they should have been for far too long. Just like Texas, there's no reason why Oklahoma should be a bigger brand team than the University of Texas, and for the last 6 years they have been. There's no reason why Notre Dame should be a bigger brand than USC. They have been the last 6 years. This is a big hire for them, and they kept Clay Helton way too long. Like I get why they kept him. He really never got. He got a lot of chances. He had a chance, post Rose Bowl with Darnold. That failed. They were good, but then they sucked in the bowl game against Ohio State, and I blame Helton more in that than I do Darnold. But he had a chance with JT Daniels. And if JT Daniels wasn't good and if he didn't tear his ACL and he just wasn't good, that's when they should have fired Helton. That's when the fire Helton stuff really started. And then he did such a good job with Slovis year one, and then Slovis got worse last year, and they still kept him around. Keaton Slovis is not a bad quarterback. He should be a first-round quarterback every single year. He's really good. That arm talent is legit, and Keaton Slovis is just not getting a fair chance because of Clay Helton's, inability to run an offense. But they're going to hire someone big. They have to. This is their most important hire since Pete Carroll. They have to get back to dominating. There's no reason why they should not be able to get, 10 of the 20 best players in the state of California and be a national championship contender every single season, which in the early part of the century, they were with Pete Carroll. They were getting great quarterbacks. They were getting great line play. They were getting great, secondary pieces. Because that's what California is. That's what they produce. They didn't get out recruited by Oregon. They didn't get out recruited by Utah. They didn't get out recruited by Stanford or UCLA. And over the last couple of years, some of those schools have out recruited them. As far as who they're going to hire, I don't think they should hire Eric Bieniemy. They need to hire someone who's either been one, a head coach, or two, has called plays. And Bieniemy has been neither of them. I looked at Dallas. I see Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore should have taken the Boise job. Thankfully, he didn't, because he should be taking this job. Luke Fickell doesn't want the job. I don't blame him. Stay at Cincinnati, go to the NFL. He'll probably there's a path for Luke Fickell to be part of the NFL. Not really a path for Kellen Moore to go to the NFL as a head coach, but I would hire Kellen Moore now. But I don't think they will, because if they're not going to hire Graham Harrell, they're probably not going to hire Kellen Moore. Both of those guys are very similar, but Urban Meyer. And I think that's what we're all thinking. This thing with Jacksonville might not work. It looked bad in training camp. It looked bad in the preseason. It looked pretty bad in the offseason too, and damn, it looked bad on Sunday afternoon. But Urban's not going to leave in the middle of the year, and they're not going to hire anyone in the middle of the year. So this marriage might happen in the winter when they start with these big name interviews, which is exactly what's going to happen. They're not going to interview anyone yet. They have this new guy. I was surprised that they're not using Graham Harrell as their interim coach. That's what they did with Sark, an offensive guy. Sorry, not Sark, Orgeron, when he was the interim guy. And, he's fine, did his thing. Yeah, I would say Urban is the clear guy. I doubt they go Bieniemy. He really has struggled in interviews, and I just don't think he's that strong of a candidate, especially, in regard to the NFL.
Yeah, so, I live on the better side of the coast, right? I live on the East Coast. So, I've watched Pac-12 football from afar, right? And I've seen over the years, USC's fallen, UCLA's fallen in a sense, Stanford has fallen. Oregon, I mean, they've bounced back a little bit. They shouldn't be fourth in the country right now, but that's a different story. But just Pac-12 as a whole, for me personally, it feels like it's gotten weaker as the years have gone on, right? And I feel like a lot of that is because of the coaching that is in that conference. So, Jake just gave us 12 different names, so I won't go through names that I would like. I think just the main focus for USC is, they're a prestigious program, right? They used to win a lot. Obviously, they've had some down years in the past, but they can get back to relevance quickly, especially in Pac-12, if they hire the right guy. I don't care if it's a big name. I don't care, what it is. They just you have to get this one right, because the Pac-12, it's an opportunity where if you get a good coach and you recruit well, those first 2 years, you can have a quick restructure of the program to get back to relevance really quickly. So I think, watching from afar, I think as long as, you get that right guy and get in quickly and, regain that relevance, that is something that can be done. relatively quickly, which might not happen too often in college football.
For sure, Pranav, you want to add anything on to that?
No, you guys pretty much covered it. Yeah.
Yeah, just a little my own 2 cents of this. I think, Jake, you did a really good job. Tom, you guys also did a great job. I think one of the major things that they should look at in this coaching hiring, Jake, you did a good job of course. I strongly do believe it's the most important hiring they will make since the Pete Carroll hiring. I think in the grand scheme, it could be even more important than that, based on what this next coach does for them. But I think aura and the presence that this coach brings is going to be huge to the big, kind of turnaround that they hope to do with this school. Jake, I'm not sure how much you know about this, but what do you think about Chris Peterson? I know he coached University of Washington, also State. What do you think of him as a candidate?
If they can lure him out of retirement, then sure. I also look at Kyle Whittingham, guys who have dominated the line of scrimmage in the Pac-12 before. Both Peterson and Whittingham both have done that. As far as how they'll fit into modern day football, because Peterson he struggled in his last couple of years during his tenure in Washington. Obviously, Whittingham's done a great job at Utah recently, keeping on rebuilding that defense, rebuilding that team, and Utah's very good every single year in the Pac-12 South. But yeah, that's fine. That's a big enough name. That's that can be a USC coach. Anyone can be a USC coach. They kept Clay Helton for 6 years. So I think that they're going to go big. And is Chris Peterson big enough? USC fans probably know who that is because they play them every other year. They definitely know who Kyle Whittingham is. I think that those two guys are definitely guys I would lean if they want to go trenches. If they want to go air raid, they should be looking at Kellen Moore. They should be looking at Graham Harrell. The enemy's fine if they want to go that route. But NFL coordinators right now who like Joe Brady. Joe Brady will not take that job. He'll be a head coach in the NFL in 9 months or less than that, like 5 or 6 months actually. So there's a fine line of where they're going to attack, and I lean more so towards the Petersons, the Whittinghams, than the Bienemies, the Moores. That's just what I would do because I think USC football would be really fun if they go back to slinging the football, Sam Darnold, 350 yards a game, Heisman. But Matt Leinart, Heisman, even though they really dominated the trenches during that tenure, but they should be smart with this, and hiring someone who's going to dominate the line of scrimmage is not that's where they should be targeting. I would say.
Yeah, and I'm not educated enough to really describe what might be the greatest fit for USC. But I think something to keep in mind, and this kind of goes for any sense, but for a school that, again, you can regain relevancy quick, and you can build a program quick and be successful in Pac-12, it doesn't have to be the biggest name, right? You have Chip Kelly at UCLA, Herm Edwards, Arizona State. You have big guys, but are they the best fit, right? So it doesn't have to be the biggest names in the world. As long as you get that right fit into a program like that, again, like I've said a few times already, they can regain relevancy quick and be atop of the Pac-12 relatively quickly.
Certainly, Tom, that's a great point, right? Fit matters a ton. That's definitely a head coach hiring that we're going to look forward to, as Jake kind of pointed out. That might not happen until the end of the year. We don't really expect them to hire someone in the middle of the year, but of course, when it does happen, make sure you guys watch out on all TWSN platforms. We'll be covering that for sure. And as for the last topic of the show, I want to go back to one of the most interesting games of this past Sunday in the NFL was, of course, the Browns and Chiefs. It went how a lot of us expected it to go, right? A pretty high-scoring, really explosive battle. We saw lots of key players make great plays. Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, of course. Myles Garrett showed out. Did you guys learn anything new about either of these teams in this past Sunday, or are your kind of preseason and off-season assumptions about this team, both Browns and the Chiefs, still pretty similar? Pranav, you want to go ahead and get started?
Yeah, so I was at this game, and it was a great game. But I mean, the main thing is the Browns. The Browns are the second best team in the AFC to me. They have the offensive firepower, especially in the run game, to really slow down, keep the Chiefs off the field, run down the clock, and then their defense. Their defense is coming together. They had their moments in that game. But I think the biggest thing is you can't screw up against Kansas City. You really can't. And, I mean, the Browns, you look at them, I mean, they were cruising throughout most of the game. They just make tiny mistakes, and then it just comes back to bite them, and they weren't winning anymore. So, I mean, in terms of how I viewed this, it didn't really change my scope. I still think the Chiefs are the better team by a sizable margin, but I think the Browns can really give them a run for their money just due to how well they match up with them.
Again, good teams lose games. Cleveland's really good, but the one thing that's going to hold them back is Baker, and I like Baker a lot, but we saw it again. Baker's so good with the lead, and then they're going to win a lot of games playing from ahead. But Baker, Lamar, Rodgers, they're so good with the lead when they have to make the – well, obviously, you know, Rodgers, like, when he has to make the play, he's fine. Rodgers is really bad playing from behind. So I would say, you know, playing from behind and you know, needing to do that, it doesn't normally go in their favor, and especially with Baker on Sunday. Like, he threw that pick. That was bad. But Baker was really good. And, again, good teams lose games. But it really shows you how amazing Mahomes is and how much – and the level that he's at. Because when he was down by 2 touchdowns with, you know, over 20 minutes left, so who cares? Like, he's going to do it. You know, he at least, like, he might not win because, you know, what's his record when he's training by 2 touchdowns? Well, like, I don't know, 3 and 4, maybe something like that. But, like, there was never, like, a doubt that he was going to make things interesting. And, again, the defense got a great stop. They got a couple stops, actually. But, like, as far as the Browns go, I'm not taking much out of this because hopefully for the Browns' sake, they win the 1 seed and they get to have this game at home. But I do expect this game to be replayed in late January. I really do.
Yeah, the one point I'll make is that I feel like we're robbed. I wish this game was later in the year than game 1. I would have liked to see it later in the fall. But, you know, just embarking off what these two say, they make my job easier sometimes going last. You know, they are the best 2 teams, you know, respectively. I think, you know, point being, I have nothing else to say because I have nothing new to say besides what they're saying. I have nothing. I just wish this game was later in the fall, if that makes sense. So, oh well.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree. Later in the fall, there's way more playoff implications. I think these two would have definitely separated between that 1-2 tier. Maybe the Buffalo Bills would have been up there. But yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
Another thing I want to touch on real quick is Browns fans are saying that Odell is going to really change things for them. Number one, about that. Oh, I love Odell. Odell is great, especially when he's healthy. Number one, you can't trust him to be healthy at this point in his career. You just can't. And number 2, Tyrann Mathieu was out for Kansas City, and he's a more impactful piece than Odell. So it doesn't really make sense that they're bringing up that comparison because the entire Kansas City defense is just a different unit without Tyrann Mathieu out there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think Tyrann Mathieu's impact on that defense was definitely showcased very early in that first half. Maybe not as much towards the second half, but you could definitely tell that something was missing in that Chiefs defense. But yeah, that pretty much sums it up, right? We got injuries on both sides. Whatever happens. Week 1 is over. We're looking forward to week 2. Lots of close, tight games. Jake would really like to see the Eagles lose next week. Hopefully that does not happen. Hopefully they're able to beat the 49ers. If they are, that'll definitely be a topic for next week, Jalen Hurts and the Eagles.
The Hurts supremacy will live on.
It's not good, guys.
But for now, that'll wrap up the TWSN weekly show. We hope you guys really enjoyed it. Make sure you, of course, subscribe to our TWSN Patreon betting service. We just rolled this out a couple weeks ago. NFL season is a great time to make some money. We've got expert analysis and lots of different pricing for different programs. So it's affordable at all levels. Check out our Patreon link below in the description. Subscribe to our YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TWSN on all of those platforms. We're going to be pumping out lots of analysis and NFL content. And yeah, that's pretty much it for us. Have a great week.
Get up, let me begin. This is